Hello everybody and welcome back to Manga Book Club. It's April 2024 and this month we have been reading the Pokemon Adventures manga written by Hidenori Kusaka and illustrated by Mato and Satoshi Yamamoto. The illustrators changed about a third of the way into the Gold and Silver saga. So this read was really relaxing and for me personally a great switch after last month. So last month was Usagui, which was long and complicated and fantastic read. And this month Pokemon Adventures has been just a really relaxed and nostalgic and easy read. So the basic plot of Pokemon Adventures is it's in different parts and they roughly follow the games. So we have the Red, Blue, and Green saga, and then we have the Yellow saga, and then the Gold, Silver, and Crystal saga. Each one brings in elements of their respective games, but it's not the same Pokemon plot pasted and repasted. It's not one guy goes on his journey to get all 8 badges and then he challenges the Elite Four. Instead, the manga just has all of those parts of the game as the backdrop and then makes the story out of them. I think for me, the biggest draw of the manga is honestly the nostalgia of these Pokemon eras. So each one has references or tiebacks to their respective games. So in the Yellow arc, we see the little Pikachu minigame where they're looking at their Pokedex to see Pikachu's feelings. Or even things like encountering the Sudowoodo in Gen 2 or the Surfing Pikachu. All of these things just seem to get tied in. Also, funnily enough, there's kind of an explanation as to why Professor Oak asks if you're a boy or a girl with the, I guess I'll call it a running joke about Yellow pretending to be a boy, but she's actually a girl. As someone who grew up alongside this era of Pokemon, this is all really nostalgic, and I have a big smile on my face just revisiting that sort of childhood wonder of Pokemon being fun and enjoyable and just a good time. So in that context, I really enjoyed going through Pokemon Adventures this month. It was fun, it was a chill read, it was very nostalgic and tickled that part of my brain that just enjoyed being in this world. To get more manga critic-y, the manga isn't really as good as other things out there you want to read. I think it relies heavily on being nostalgic about Pokemon to enjoy this. And though I do admit that I am someone who is very nostalgic about Pokemon, so my opinion is definitely biased. What do I mean by that? So there's things like trying to set up the twist in the Gold and Silver era, like who is the masked man? Who could this possibly be? And it's very heavily forecast beforehand that it's not a surprise at all. The pacing gets a bit weird as well, with some parts feeling really fast, like the final chapter of what we read up to, as well as some parts just feeling a bit too stretched out. Like a lot of the Yellow arc is, I think of what we read, the Yellow arc will end up being my favorite part, but yeah, parts of that did feel quite stretched out. Besides that, there are parts of the manga which are just whimsy of Pokemon chapters. I don't really know how else to put it. They're just one-off chapters where we encounter a Pokemon, and then there's just like a little battle against it, or something like that. Nothing building up to an overall story, just some more little piecemeal moments of playing in the Pokemon world. I don't think this is a manga to get really high art critique-y on, because this is a manga meant for kids and to boost the Pokemon brand, really. It's meant to be just sat with and enjoyed. It's not trying to tell some grand emotional tale. And as far as telling a story that is nice and simple and enjoyable in the Pokemon world, yeah, I think it succeeded. It does what it's supposed to do. But that's just some intro thoughts. Let's get into the arcs themselves. First of all, we should mention the timings. So this is something that I was really interested in while reading the manga, is when does the manga line up to the actual release of the games? And they're about a year afterwards. So the first Pokemon game came out in 1996, and the manga began in 1997. Yellow came out in 1998, and then right at the end of that year was when the Yellow arc began in the manga. Gold and Silver released in 1999, and then the manga chapters came out in 2001. So there's a bit of overlap between them. And you can see that in the end of the Yellow chapter, for example. We see Green has a Schnubble in one of her Pokeballs. I think it's our first look at a Gen 2 Pokemon besides the outlines of Lugia and Ho-Oh. So let's get into these arcs. We've got 3 to go through. We've got the Red, Green, and Blue chapters, then the Yellow chapters, and then the Gold, Silver, and Crystal chapters. So let's start at the start. Our first main character is Red on his journey to collect the 8 gym badges and become the strongest trainer. It starts out as the classic tale of Gen 1 with Red out on his journey, and then Blue is there as the rival. All very typical stuff as we explore the Pokemon world. Eventually, we get brought up into this larger conflict about Giovanni and Team Rocket, and half of the gym leaders are on their side and half of the gym leaders are on the good side, leading up to this climactic battle at the Silphco. In the manga, the gym badges are like genuine power sources, and with the power of all of them combined, Team Rocket can take control of the legendary Pokemon. They even managed to splice the three birds together to make Zapmolkuno, which honestly was quite exciting to see considering we had Pokemon Fusions come out last year, and Zapmolkuno is a big part of that story too. During the fights at the Silph Company, there was a couple of times I just wrote a few things down as I was reading because they were just like exciting moments of the manga or just kind of weird moments of the manga. So there's parts where Jigglypuff is doing the smash jump and he's just inflating himself to carry Green away. Or there's the moment where Dragonite and Gyarados have a beam clash and they're both using Hyper Beam. Just cool or weird moments like that. So at the Silph Company, Red, Green, and Blue are paired off into separate battles against the different gym leaders. And Green is set up against Sabrina, Green being the third member of this hero trio, the more mischievous and thieving one. So how Green decides to win this fight is she's going to hide Pokeballs underneath her shirt and then make a body confidence comment at Sabrina, so Sabrina feels jealous and rips her shirt, revealing the Pokeballs that Green has hidden. What a plan! There's just a very funny panel of Green with a big grin on her face as her shirt is ripped open and there is two Pokeballs strapped to her chest ready to attack Sabrina. Also, how the Silph Company ends, I had a good laugh at. So the good gym leaders have walled off the city. No one can escape from any side. And then eventually, there is Zapmolkuno against all of the starters, and with the power of teamwork and friendship, the good guys take down the bad guys. They manage to escape the building as the Silph Company collapses around them. So the good guys make it out, and then Brock and Misty and Erica show up, and they're like, "Yep, no one got past us. Don't worry, you definitely killed them. You definitely crushed the bad guys underneath that big building. Good job, guys. No one else got out. You definitely killed them." I mean, not in those words, but definitely the vibe. But of course, they do survive, and they go on to be part of the next arc in a cool way. And that's one of the things I quite like about what the manga does. And a lot of Pokemon media, the gym leaders, most of them don't do too much. They just kind of show up for their gym battle, and then we don't really see them again besides sort of a reference here and there. For Pokemon Adventures, they do seem like a more fixed and important part of the world. Some of them have quite significant parts in the story. I think you will not forget what Blaine was up to and the fact that he has spliced his DNA into Mewtwo, so they're like genetic brothers and they can connect in some special ways. It's just a cool inclusion of making a gym leader very memorable and giving him a strong place in the story. Of course, this arc ends in the way you might expect, with Red and Blue fighting each other for the championship, and each of them have, over the course of their journey, improved by being rivals with each other. In that final battle in particular, the manga spells out quite clearly that each trainer has become better from the rivalry. They've adopted new methods and overall become a better person because of their adventure and because of their interactions with each other. And yeah, that's a very simple way to go, but it's also just a very effective one, and a story that has lasted the test of time and goes through into basically every single Pokemon game. It's basically a staple of the series, and having it in this final fight, it just brought things together really nicely, I thought. Notably, the ending championship does not include the Elite Four. It's not the typical gauntlet that we've seen from the games, and in fact, we haven't seen the Elite Four at all so far. They're only introduced as this first arc concludes, and we go into the Yellow arc where the Elite Four will be our main antagonists. Of the three arcs that we read, I think the Yellow arc did end up being my favorite. Just the starting concept is already really exciting. So Pikachu shows up at Professor Oak's lab and he's beat to hell. We've just spent the rest of the manga building up Red as this amazing immortal trainer, and apparently he's been challenged by someone from the Elite Four and he's had this horrible defeat, and Pikachu has had to run away to go and get help because something has happened to Red. And that is a really intriguing and exciting way to start an arc. It immediately got me invested. Our new hero is Yellow, someone who can, psychically heal Pokemon and kind of understand their thoughts and feelings. She's someone who has encountered Red in the past and so is going on this big rescue mission to try and find and rescue Red from whatever has happened to him. Very quickly, we learn that the Elite Four are behind this. Lorelei comes in and tries to assassinate Pikachu for knowing the truth about what happened to Red. And I thought, okay, that's a bit full on. But then Lance shows up and pretty bluntly just says, hey, human and Pokemon can't live together, so I'm gonna hyper beam Vermilion City. And he does. The manga does the whole Batman versus Superman thing where they say, oh, don't worry, the town was mostly deserted because everyone was at the swimming race. But no, Lance definitely just murdered a lot of people, and the manga is relatively quick to gloss over that. So Lance's plan is to get all of the gym badges to tame yet another legendary Pokemon. So with Team Rocket, they had 7 of the 8 badges, but now Lance is trying to get all 8 to tame an even stronger legendary and, I think, murder most humans. It's a pretty strong goal. The Elite Four basically go to war with Kanto, and they send out waves of Pokemon to all of the good gym leaders. With them all occupied, Lance can go and do his plan. It's up to Yellow and Blue and Green to stop Lance's plan. They team up with Blaine and Mewtwo, as well as the 3 Team Rocket gym leaders. And this is a pretty fun team-up of personalities, where these peoples who don't really like each other too much have to team up and find ways to work together. The respective teams take down 3 of the Elite Four, even Red comes back. Then it's up to Yellow to take on Lance. One of the things I haven't mentioned about Yellow is their Pokemon team. Her team is really bad. It's a Raticate and a Dodrio and a Metapod, just absolute rubbish by game standards, and it was awesome to see her use that team, just a team of absolute garbage. The manga is one of those mediums where Pokemon can do cool things outside of their stats. For example, Yellow can make Caterpie do some really cool things with String Shot, something that would not work at all in the games. Or Lance tries to Hyper Beam Yellow and she blocks it with a Metapod that hardens. It's just Pokemon fun. This all culminates in, well, basically a Spirit Bomb with everyone giving their power to Yellow and Yellow channeling it through to beat Lance. It's some real power of friendship, giving Goku the energy for the Spirit Bomb, everyone's channeling their energy into Sailor Moon kind of ending. In all honesty, this is one of those manga that kind of goes in one ear and out the other. There are parts of it that I can remember, but most of the story is lost pretty soon after it's gained, and that's probably a testament to what I think of the story. It's not anything spectacular. As far as these 3 arcs go, I think this Yellow arc is definitely the part that I remember the most. So you've got the moments of Blaine and Mewtwo fighting Lance, or the heroes teaming up with the evil Team Rocket gym leaders, or Lance hyper beaming that town, or the very cool visual about what happens to Red and the ice handcuffs that end up affecting him right through into the next arc. So while this is a very more childish and kid-friendly manga and meant to be happy and joyful and nostalgic and uplifting, for me, Lance hyper beaming that town is still how I remember this manga. Anyways, we did have one more arc we went through this month, which was the Gold, Silver, and Crystal arc, so let's get into that. This is Gen 2, and we follow Gold, our hero, Silver, the villain, and then Crystal, who takes over the plot about halfway through. The story this time starts pretty familiar. So Silver comes in, steals a Pokemon, and Gold is after him to try and get the Pokemon back. Along the way, there is this revival Team Rocket that's hanging around the place, and that's really where the parallels end. So Gold's story isn't about becoming a better trainer and getting badges or anything. It's just this pursuit of Silver. And Silver is connected to the actual plot of this arc. So there is this mysterious masked man who is trying to take over the legendary Pokemon. And there's actually a very clever narrative tie that they used. So Green in the first arcs has a very familiar hairstyle. She looks a lot like Silver. And at the end of the Yellow arc, she says that she was kidnapped away from Kanto when she was very young. So it turns out this masked man character had control over Ho-Oh and was collecting children and basically indoctrinating them into his little cult so he could track down Lugia so he could control time. In the past, we learn he almost managed to achieve his goal, but Green snuck away with the feathers from Ho-Oh and Lugia that he needed, whisking them away alongside herself and Silver. But now the Masked Man's back at his plan again. And ooh, he's so mysterious. He has this mask of ice and seems to be a master of ice-type Pokemon. We also have this ice gym leader named Price. You'll seriously never guess who the Masked Man is. But that's all latter half of the arc. The first half of the arc is Gold chasing down Silver and building his team and becoming better as a trainer. One of the things that is awesome about his design is that he uses a pool cue. And that is such an interesting choice and a real niche part of his design. I don't think there is a single pool table in the manga in these 3 arcs. I don't think there's a pool table in the Pokemon games either. I'm trying to think if there's a pool table in any of the Pokemon games. There's definitely not in the first 2, but do later generations have a pool table? So yeah, odd choice to have our main character in the Pokemon game have a pool cue as his main weapon / Pokeball deployer, but I do dig the design, it is really cool. Anyways, Gold goes on his adventure and it ends up with him and Silver at the Lake of Rage where they're encountering the Red Gyarados, and then the 2 go missing. We cut to Chris, who is our new main character. So Chris isn't so much a trainer as she is a catcher. She's really good at catching Pokemon. As her part goes on, the other story that we follow are the legendary dogs running around and looking for trainers to capture them. A nice little connection to what Chris is doing, and eventually Chris gets a chance to capture Suicune, and she fails. This is her first time to fail in capturing a Pokemon in a long time, and then she really struggles to capture anything after that. She goes into this big slump. And then, this is one of my favorite parts, her mum shows up, and her mum is a complete ditz, and she's like, "Hey Chris, are you doing so good? Show me how you move, do you some cool kicks and show me how you capture a Pokemon." And Chris is like, "I'm sorry, mum. I've been struggling recently because I failed to catch this Pokemon, and it's just been so hard." And her mum just completely drops the ditz, runs up, slaps Chris across the face, and says, "Go train in the mountains." It's a unique style of parenting. This is the only time her mum shows up in the manga. She shows up, she acts real silly, then she just slaps Chris in the face and tells her to go train in a very hostile mountain. I mean, beautiful moment. It's so out of place and just so funny. So anyways, Chris goes and does her training, she gets her chutzpah back, and then she links up with Yellow, and then the 2 of them head off to go and find Lugia. Gold and Silver show up as well, turns out they're back and better than ever, but ultimately they do fail and the Masked Man gets Lugia as well. He's already got Ho-Oh. So we come to the climax of this arc. There's going to be a challenge between the Johto gym leaders and the Kanto gym leaders. Our heroes figure out that one of the gym leaders is secretly the Masked Man. So while this tournament goes on, the heroes are running around trying to figure out who the Masked Man could possibly be. We don't know its price yet, but, everyone reading knows that it's Price. Actually, there's a line in this part where Chris goes, "It's unthinkable. The new leader of Team Rocket is a gym leader." And I'm like, the previous leader of Team Rocket was a gym leader. And in fact, half of the gym leaders of Kanto were officially evil and tried to take over the country. But Chris is still like, "Oh no, it couldn't possibly be a gym leader." Near the end of the tournament, Team Rocket attacks, and they've got half masks over their face, and they've been almost brainwashed or hypnotized by this Masked Man. So all the gym leaders have to fight off Team Rocket, and Lieutenant Surge gives us maybe one of the best moments of the entire manga. And I do wonder if I just had a bad translation, because he says to one of the Team Rocket goons, he's like, "Hey buddy, I remember you. You used to be one of my comrades. Remember what Team Rocket stands for. It's not for this. Team Rocket stands for Raid on the City. Knock out evil tusks." So Rocket is a really bad anagram in the manga. Raid on the City. Knock out evil tusks. Genuinely, is this a bad translation, or is this the funniest thing to ever happen in Pokemon ever? Because this is a horrible phrase for Team Rocket to rally behind. "Hey buddy, I'm gonna go join Team Rocket. Yeah, what's their motto? Raid on the city, knock out evil tusks." I mean, where does the evil tusks even come from? I'm trying to think of tusky Pokemon in Gen 1 and 2, and all I can think of is Donphan, and I don't even know if Donphan was in the manga. Anyways, the fights escalate, and we learn that the masked man was secretly Price the whole time. Boom! Mind blown. His real plan is to capture Celebi so he can control time. So basically our heroes all head for Elix Forest while he does the same, and can he capture Celebi before our heroes stop him? There are some very cool moments of all of the heroes standing in front of Price, and they've got the legendary dogs behind them and all of the starters next to them. Or just before that, when they need to calm down Ho-Oh and Lugia, and Bill has set up the PC so people can just send their Pokemon to go and help, and everyone's sending their Pokemon and they're charging in. It's just all this big solidarity and joy that exists in the Pokemon world. Price still manages to capture Celebi, and he opens up the shrine, which leads him into this time distortion world place. It's not the distortion world, and it's nothing to do with Palkia. It's just something's happening. This part of the manga gets very difficult to follow. There's a really cool sequence of when the heroes jump in and Gold and Silver are seeing snapshots of their past together, and it's going back to old panels that we've seen before. And that was a really cool idea and a great design, and that was really fun to follow along. But after that, it's very confusing as to what is happening. This is all the last 2 and probably more accurately 1.5 chapters. See, Price wasn't that evil all along. He wanted to go back in time to save a Lapras that died because of him. It's all very last minute. We've got to build up Price as a real character because we haven't developed him at all kind of deal. Again, kids manga, it's meant to just be this fun, joyful ride, so I can't really complain too much. But then this part ends in basically the same way as Yellow did, with everyone giving all their energy to Gold, so Gold can go in and stop Price, and the world doesn't change and everything is fine. It does feel like quite a quick wrap-up to the story, but then the chapter does finish with a pretty extended sort of closure on the previous 2 arcs. But overall, it feels like the ending of this arc definitely needed a couple of more chapters. There's this big introspective moment of Gold trying to figure out what his unique characteristic is. Some people are trainers and some people are fighters. Some people are evolvers or captures. What am I, says Gold. And then he opens up the piece of paper from Professor Oak, and Professor Oak says, "You're a breeder." Bit of an awkward term out of context, but in story, Gold has only hatched 2 eggs. One of them is a Togepi that he turned kind of into a criminal and then left in the box and never used during the story. And the other one is the Pichu, who suddenly becomes very important to end the manga. It's just a bit jank. But at least the last arc does end in that nice sort of slower way to bring the previous arcs to a close, with their stories finishing and something new being able to come up next. This is where we officially finished reading for the month. Pokemon Adventures does go on for another 300 plus chapters. I think I've read up to the end of Diamond and Pearl previously. I decided to finish here for this month because let's make it easy after reading Yusugui last month. But also, I really like the Ruby and Sapphire arc, but I can't stand Emerald. I really dislike Emerald. If you have read on, I would be curious to know where you're up to and which arcs you've enjoyed and which ones you haven't. One of the big draws of this manga for me is seeing the previous characters being brought forward, and it feels very... I don't know how to describe it. You know, in the ways that Marvel movies will bring back a character after like 3 movies, and there'll be the awkward pause for people to clap in the cinemas. It reminds me of that, where you have, at the end of the Yellow arc, someone's freed Red from the ice. Who could it be? And then it turns out it's Giovanni, and then you're like, oh my gosh, that was really cool. Or even just seeing Red and Green and Blue come back for the Gold and Silver arcs. That's just exciting. Minor spoiler for the Gen 3 arcs, but yes, these characters do show up again, and they bring forward some of the plot elements that came from these starting arcs. And I think that is something fun that the manga does, bringing back these old characters in a way that is obviously self-referential, but in a very fun way, like seeing Bruno and Koga show up at the end of the Gold and Silver arc. I just had a stupid smile on my face, like, yeah, the boys are back. Like, I don't even have a strong connection to these characters, but the manga is having fun bringing them back in, and I think there is just something fun about that. That tickles a part of our brains. It's why we get real excited at things like cameos or guest appearances, but it's just all through the manga. it was a good read. Pokemon Adventures is a very, very chill, very nostalgic, very simple read. And sometimes it is nice to sit down with a manga that doesn't require tremendous amounts of thought, and I can just sit in the sunshine and have a good read. This is one of those mangas. I do think nostalgia plays a big role in why I can enjoy this manga so much. I think as a story, it didn't really leave much of an impact or a lasting impression on me, and that's okay. Not every story needs to be the, I will remember this for the rest of my life, this is peak art. Sometimes it's nice to just sit down and enjoy living in the world of Pokemon for a while. I think if you're looking for a more serious and a more strong interpretation of the Gen 1 story, I have always heralded Pokemon Festival of Champions. It's a self-published story by Seijin Tombo, and it's really good. It's not finished. It's been going on for, I think, like 6 years now, and he only publishes a chapter like once a year lately. But it's fantastic. It is beautifully drawn. It is incredibly emotional and heartfelt and passionate. If you're looking for a story that is doing the Pokemon thing in a more high art and serious way, then I cannot recommend that story enough. As far as Pokemon Adventure goes, I think it does what it sets out to do. It tells a simple little self-contained story, it plays with some of the ideas of the generation of which it is adapting, and it keeps you entertained enough to keep reading. So yeah, worth reading, and I think a nice palate cleanser between last month, which was Usugui, and what will be next month, which is The Climber. From memory, and this is all offhand, The Climber is about 300 or 400 chapters of a very isolated individual who only wants to be by himself and climb mountains. It is a story that, both in art and in messages, takes a lot more to chew on than Pokemon Adventures, so having this in between Usugui and that has been really lovely. And I think that's all for this month. We will see you next month for May as we break into The Climber. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you G's in the next one.